Hello and welcome to Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, January 8th, 2023. I'm Larry Rhodes, or DJ Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host, DJ Wombat. Hello,
Hey,
Wombat.
hey, I'm the Wombat. Hey, everybody.
Today's guest is Dread Pirate Higgs from Western
Arr!
Canada. Welcome. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. If you get the feeling you're the only non-believer in your town, well, you're just not. In Knoxville, in the middle of the Bible Belt, I'm hearing an echo. We have a group of over 1,000 of us, the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, and we'll tell you more about them after the mid-show break, so be sure to stick around. Wombat, what's our topic today?
Just let us wear hats. Just let us wear hats is the theme of today's show. And it's going to be led by a bunch of irksome stories brought to us by our own Dread Pirate Higgs. But before we go into that spicy sauce, let's throw up some spaghetti on the wall and lead us, if you will, in our daily or our weekly invocation.
Sure. Our noodly lord, who art in a colander, al dente be thy noodles. Thy blood be rum, thy sauce be yum, with meat, as it is with vegetables. Give us this day our garlic bread, and forgive us our cussing, as we forgive those who cuss against us. And lead us not into ketoism, but deliver us some carbs. For thine are the meatballs, and the sauces, and the grog, whenever and ever.
Ramen.
Man. Guys,
Who's got the holy hand grenade?
He's got the holy hand grenade. I'd want to be able to do the invocations in sign language as Dread is doing them in English, just for fun. See if I can pull that off. Maybe try that in the future. Larry, love to catch up with you. You told me you were playing a video game called Star Citizen.
Star Citizen. Oh, I use the word playing loosely.
Yeah.
Got the bare minimum of RAM, which is 16 megs, or 16.
Okay.
Sorry. So it's a little choppy, a little slow. It's taken a while to get going. It takes almost a half an hour to load.
Well, don't worry. It only took 23 years for him to get it developed. It's still an
Yeah, and $500 million. So yeah, it's an interesting test, but I'm enjoying it so far.
From a person who's played Eve and gotten pretty deep into it, are you feeling the similar vibes from Star Citizen? Like, you feel like this could be the next?
Well, the biggest difference between Eve and Star Citizen is the first person. You get to actually roam around inside the ship. You can get off the ship on any other planet. You can go into cities. You can go into forests, or you can, do hand-to-hand or first-person combat. It covers pretty much everything, and it has huge planets that you can just roam around on and discover.
And it's like a true space life job sim. Like, you're not there to save the universe from an alien threat. You are an engineer of like many others, and you're just chipping on rocks. And you're selling the rocks.
What's interesting is, like in Eve, if you want to shoot another ship, you just point to them and hit a button. On this game, you can do that, but if you have a bigger ship with multiple turrets, you have to have people on those turrets. Real live people on the turret, on the ship, manning the turret.
Wow.
So the battles get really intense and interesting. But enough of that.
Okay, very, very cool, very cool. Guys,
I do have a question about it, though. It's like a subscription thing you got to pay for?
Yeah. It's about $40 for the software and $10 a month.
Oh, okay.
But I figured I'd try it for a few months and see if I liked it.
And it's called what? Starship Citizens?
Star Citizens.
Star Citizens. Okay.
Yeah, we are in the age of games that start with the word star and deal with space. But if you like, Larry, if you like that game, there's another game by Bethesda coming out. I imagine maybe this year or next year, called Star Child, which is the exact same premise. But
it has less resource requirements.
Less resource requirements, no doubt. You can probably play it on most consoles, and I would imagine if you need a streamlined version of like Eve, not as in-depth or complicated or less person intensive as Star Citizen, Star Child might be the one for you. So you at least have these gradient. And then if you don't even like that, there's another game called No Man's Sky, which in my opinion
I
is
have
just
looked
like,
at that.
it's everything you just described, but solo and multiplayer. They just keep adding more stuff to it. It's really cool. It's a really good game. On my end, I just made a new song. I feel good about it. There used to be a time period where when I was making music, it would take me like 4 hours to make a brand new song, and I'd pop it out on the internet, and everyone would have a laugh at it, and I'd have fun, and I'd get my creative juices going. But over time, I'm taking the audio engineering aspect of it more seriously, and I'm realizing that there's a whole wealth of like tools that people use to make music sound good that isn't just how well you can play an instrument. And it's like compression, EQ, chain compressions, verbs, reverbs, echo, delays, gains, so many gates. There's so many things, so many terms. And when you like get into it, there's this like really nice community of people who will help you listen to music and understand how to properly pan everything, how to properly pitch everything, where is the peaks coming from, and how to fix them appropriately, so that the next time you make another song, it already sounds like stereo quality, but you just made it in your own bedroom. It feels really, really good to get better at that. And
Cool.
because of that, that's the next thing that I'm learning how to play. So when people say like, "What's your favorite instrument?" It's like my computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last song I made was the ultimate of it. Let me see if I can fix my audio as I was talking about that story, and tell you guys one last thing. I have made it 6 months in my weight loss journey. I am now been maintaining my weight perfectly. I feel good. I have no fear of like going back up to the big weight that I was beforehand.
Very good.
I just feel good. It feels good just maintaining and realizing that I can maintain. And if anyone has questions on how they can be good at taking care of themselves and losing weight in like a healthy way that doesn't require them to subscribe to a dogma of like ketoism or Atkins or God or whatever, just like basic calorie deficit, you can start an Excel spreadsheet on your own, count how much you take in, count how much you burn, make sure you're at a deficit. That's it. And just keep it nice and simple. And you can do that on your own. You don't need a 14-week course. You don't need a guru. You don't need a health fitness. You can do it on your own. It was just the best thing possible.
Yeah, bottom line, Ty, I think, is output must always exceed input. Period.
That's it. And if you want to eat more, work out more. Like, it's literally that simple. Like, it's the best thing ever. And when you do that, you feel empowered because you know you did it, not someone else or a trainer or a program. It was you. 10,000%. That makes me feel good. I feel like we give a lot of credit to God when we can really just give those credits to ourselves and realize that we have the power to make the heaven that we want here on this earth. Yeah. So, speaking of other things that deal with kicking God out of situations. Fred, would you mind talking to us about? Oh, wait!
Wow, that's a really good segue.
You can't wear that hat in this podcast. I'm sorry, not unless you're Hindu or Sikh. I'm sorry.
Well, so what's that? Sorry, I should have been listening when I was talking.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying you're not allowed to wear that hat in this show unless if you have proper identification that you genuinely believe in your God or that you are a Sikh or a Hindu. I'm sorry.
Can prove it.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yes, as you know, the battle is ongoing, and certainly my latest letter to the manager there of driver's licensing, integrity, and oversight at ICBC is a little sharp. And I've just, trying to be polite and courteous and all the rest of it. It doesn't seem to achieve anything. So essentially making a threat to civil action is where I've had to take it. So, but it's ongoing, and of course the driver's licensing branch there of ICBC, which is the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia, said they were not going to give me service. Wrote a letter to my local driver's licensing branch to say refuse him service if he dares to wear his colander or his tricorn in an attempt to get his driver's license. So
let's take a step back.
That's pretty severe.
let's just take a step back and
Yeah.
explain the situation for everyone who's coming.
Well, let's first of all see if we can get rid of that echo. I hear everything that Dred's saying twice, and I'm afraid it's going to go out.
Yeah,
like
I was
that.
hearing that too, and I haven't changed my setup at all. So
You don't have speakers going?
And I'll be honest, I don't hear any echo on my side.
Okay, then go ahead. Let's see if it comes through on the recording.
Okay, so the story behind this is, if you hadn't noticed, Dredd is wearing a tricorn hat. What do those look like? It's like a pirate hat with the 3 sides to it. It's like a triangular hat.
you know, and I mean, we consider
Describing
ourselves.
for a radio listen.
Yeah, we consider ourselves pirates as the chosen people of the Pastafarians, or of the
Fantastic.
Flying Spaghetti Monster.
So it's not an analogy. It is a pirate hat. It is what it is. And
That's right.
The cool thing about it is I can completely see Dredd's face. I have no issue recognizing him because if he was wearing a turban, the exact same amount of his face would still be exposed.
Right.
And so what's interesting in a lot of states in America, I would imagine all of them, and also in Canada, which is a bit more surprising considering I was hoping that they'd be more liberal on this idea, or more progressive is a better term, is that they have a rule that says you can wear a head garb if you are religious. However, they also overstipulated to say these are the approved religions that you're allowed to wear head garbs for.
Yeah.
And that's the line that I find to be troubling because it's not up to the government to decide which religions get special credit or access to certain things and which ones don't. It's a very dangerous precedent to set. So in Dredd's case, he's wearing a hat where I can see his face, and a Hindu might be wearing a turban where I can also see his face. Yet the turban gets to wear his religious head garb when he goes to take his driver's license, and Dredd cannot. Yeah. And that is offensive to me because it is special choosing by the government based on religion when they shouldn't have, 1, the authority to do that, and 2, any care because they're just a company that sends out plastic cards so you can drive and do your own work. What is their concern? What's the major harm? Why are we investing our tax services, not me particularly, but you, Dredd, in this safeguard? Like, what does this help? Who does this help other than marginalized groups of people who are on a particular list? Mm-hmm. That's the part that really offends me. So, Dredd, you've actually consistently been going to the driver's license board or places to get your licenses, and you actually have a couple of licenses that allowed you to have your Tricon hard on. I imagine it was a firearms, private detective. Could you mind talking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently have my Canadian firearms possession acquisition license, which is issued, of course, by the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And so, uses what is called facial recognition technology. And of course, facial recognition technology meets a standard now internationally. So where headgear does not interfere with facial recognition technology, it's considered irrelevant. That is the case, of course, with Sikhs and Hindus who wear turbans and Muslims. I know some Muslims wear turbans. But what is interesting in this case is the pretense that ICBC makes this accommodation for those whose religions prohibit them from removing their headgear. Now, as we all know, religion is a choice, except perhaps if you're a woman. And that I see as really the only people who are prohibited from removing their headgear, as we can see from instances of murder in Iran recently. And of course, the same thing has actually happened in Canada, where a woman was murdered by her brother and her father for taking off her hijab and refusing to wear it. I think this was back in 2012. But I mean, how is it up to the government, any government, especially our more Western governments, to say that we are going to accommodate an extreme religious position on the treatment of women, and then exclude everyone else that can't demonstrate the same thing.
On another idea, like you don't do a driver's license once a year. I imagine it's like once every 5 years. So if you're a Hindu and you get your picture on this year, you can become an atheist tomorrow, not wear your turban for the next 4 years. And then at the last week before you need to renew your license, be like, you know what? I kind of like that turban again. Just put it on just for kicks, and you can still get your license done. Whether you genuinely believe in a God or not, just because you look like it and you decide to wear the hat, you can. So there's no real litmus test on, well, he genuinely believes it and he's a Sikh. It's like, no, you can just be brown and wear a turban and get away with it.
Yeah. Well, and that was actually a point I made as well to them, to say, you know, there are people who would do just that in order to fit in with their you know, social circles or their cultural heritage. You know, there's nothing to say that a person, and in fact, recently one of our Pastafarian crew showed me a photograph of a license that a person used for ID, where he was a brown man, and he was wearing a black toque, and to emblematic of being a Sikh, but apparently either he didn't have his turban with him, or just liked the look, you know. But it wasn't questioned at the time, so it seems a fairly arbitrary application of a very ill-formed policy.
Dredd, you could walk into I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying you could technically walk into the driver's license board with a yarmulke on, and no one would bat an eye. If you don't know on the radio, Dredd, while blazing in the Canadian sun, I imagine, could be passable as a Western Jew, more or less. You could wear a yarmulke, and people will be like, "Oh, that's fine. Go on ahead, just have fun." And take your picture and walk out and be like, 1, I'm not Jewish. 2, I don't believe in this God. And 3, you let me clearly wear religious garbs. If whether I believe in it or not, you still let me wear this one, but you won't let me wear the one for the God I actually do believe in. What is your malfunction? Stuff like that. And so what I really appreciate what you're doing is that you are stirring the pot and helping people recognize that the idea that religious injustice occurring is not just something that's conceptual or something that atheists make up. It's institutionalized, it's ingrained in our society, it's held by our authoritarian figures, it's mandated in laws, and it's something that is clearly explicit that we can point out and demonstrate through practice. And it's still ongoing because the alternative is for the group that has the advantage to give up some of that advantage in a favor of treating people like more humanely. And I feel
said.
Such a crazy thing.
One thing I'd also like to point out too is like when we do the Global Atheist News, many of the points are taken from Iran and Indonesia and all these hotbeds of religious discord and activity. Where we have to recognize that violence is not only physical in form, that it could be psychological violence, you know, which is, of course, the kind of a violence that's, practiced by, Catholic priests on altar boys, or by priests on residential school children, by taking away their culture and their language in favor of whatever the religious belief of the residential school facility is. And of course on women, women and in different cultures and in different parts of the world. But certainly in Canada, we're not seeing all this rioting and whatnot that you see in Iran, but it doesn't mean that the same things aren't happening here. Just not making the international news because it's not 50 people, it's 1. Well, I would argue that one woman being killed by her brother and husband, or brother and father, for not wearing a piece of clothing in accordance with some religious tenet, is an outrage in equal power and proportion to 50 or 100 or 1,000 people being killed for the same reason.
So 2 points. One, the injustices that are going on overseas are in tandem going on here, just under different brands.
Yeah.
And the reason why they aren't in media news, in my opinion, here's some opinionated news, is because news is entertainment on television primarily. And people don't like being challenged often.
Yes.
They'd rather just be entertained. And what's entertaining is to say the bad guys are over there and there's a whole ocean separating us. Let's feel good about ourselves here by looking at the bad stuff way, way, way over there.
Yeah.
And when you ever turn that vision on us and show like the January 6th riot or insurrection, the events, or the institutionalized racism, or protests that are going on, or the stuff that you are going through, one, if they did that more, you would realize you're not the only person who's feeling that way. Because I can tell you there's a lot of times where I feel like marginalized and I feel like, am I the only one? It's no. And when the protests were happening, it made me feel like, oh my gosh, there's other people who I finally feel the same way I do. We can collaborate and figure this out. But when you are the only one who you can see who's experiencing this, that disempowers you as well. And I feel like that's part of the agenda as well. It's like we don't want to give too much attention to Dread Pirate's problem, because then other people who have this similar problem might band up and be like, hey, this is a problem.
Yeah. Well, I've been at this for 6 years.
Yeah.
And, I know there's lots of people, and, most of certainly the vocal ones, the comments I hear are, what's the matter with this guy? Like me. What? He's an idiot. He's, he's stupid. It's such a trivial thing.
Yeah.
And that is really part of the point, is that it's not as trivial as everyone might think, because
when the boot's not on your neck,
institutionalized bigotry is institutionalized bigotry,
right?
No matter what form it takes, it is what it is, and it has to stop, and that's what I stand for.
When the boot's not on your neck, it's just a shoe. So why would you care about it, right?
That's right. It's footwear.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. It's location, location, location. Once you put that on your neck, it becomes a thing that you want other people to pay attention to, and you'll do anything to get it off of it. Larry, what do you think?
Well, I was kind of wondering, I don't know the Constitution or the laws in Canada, where Dread is from, but do you have anything like no religious test for office or no religious test for anything? I mean, is that codified?
It is, and in fact, it's enshrined in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, updated in 1984, Section 2A and 2B, and it's right there under number 1. It says the right to religious belief or lack of belief, and the right to religious expression.
Okay, so therefore the government should not be in a position, or put itself in a position to dictate whether you believe or not, or test you whether you do or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and this was part of the point I had tried to make, even with the Human Rights Tribunal, who said, well, they don't argue cases of constitutional law and or charter. They don't make charter arguments. And it was like, well, but you're supporting the BC Human Rights Code, which is the child of that charter. And so I mean, how can you say you don't serve the greater good, or that you make somehow an exit for yourself by saying, well, we only look at the Human Rights Code and you don't quite fit in there?
Wow.
And that's exactly
you
what
must
they've
not
done.
be human.
That's exactly what they've done.
What's one of the problems of religion is that they tend to dehumanize their enemy.
Yeah, of course.
So that they can then persecute or at least sideline them and give them limit their rights.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is, once they have those privileges that they've taken away from other people, it's not like they share them equivalently with their followers. It's just only for their select few, and all the masses vicariously sucking off that teat.
Yes.
It's, hey, we will make sure this group can't take a picture or behave as humanly as you. But what does anyone else get from that other than the people in power continuing to marginalize others and feeling more ingrained to be able to take that power away from other people?
Right.
Like, that offers nothing beneficial to society. And the saddest thing is you are documenting this in such a way that, in my opinion, and in your candor with the government bodies, are so responsible and intelligent and well spoken and well said and just clearly outlined with all your problems that you would think for just one instance you would just have a person who sees it and be like,
Right.
okay, you can take a hat, come in on 7:00, we'll take a picture of you with a hat on, it's all okay, it's no big deal. But instead they're like, well, I have also read the laws, and then they just start spouting off other nonsense.
Exactly.
What I would love to see you do is make those just like a YouTube video of just the letters that you're getting, and just document this for history's sake. Tag it all with your Pastafarian keywords. That way, other people looking up can find it. It makes me really, really sad when I have to see history in motion, but I feel like this is one of those events. This is one of the things where here's clearly the side of good, here's clearly the side of corruption. Yeah. Keep fighting, keep going this. We'll support you. I think when we come back after the second break, we'll talk about what it would look like ideally when you get everything you want. And you'd be surprised, it's not that much.
Right.
And it'd actually help everybody. Yeah. But Larry, why don't you take us out?
Sure. This is the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Stay tuned for the second half coming up after this break on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break.
All right. Echoing still? How's my audio? Is it still fluttery?
Yeah. On my end, it's fluttery and Red is echoey. But so it's probably my end. Yeah.
Oh, let me disconnect.
No, it's probably me. See, Ty's not hearing the echo, and you're not hearing his flutter.
Well, I heard an echo right at the beginning, but I'm not hearing it now.
What about my flutter? Are you still hearing that?
I hear your flutter every once in a while. Yeah,
it's not as bad as it was. I'm going to run up and get my tea. I'll be right back.
Running up, getting my tea up. Testing. Okay, so audio's back on. Am I still fluttering?
No, it sounds pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that YouTube channel. I was just like, man, I started off first watching. I was just like, okay, this is the story of how everything's going to work out. And then it just didn't kept working out. I'm like, what? And then you ended it. And I was like, oh, I'm upset now. You tricked me. You tricked me, Dredd. Yeah. I just wanted to have a nice little evening, and now I'm upset for the rest of the day. That's And it's one of those, like, so you think about it, like, when you watch videos from like the 60s, 70s, and you see like Martin Luther King give his speech, what they don't show, which is still available, is like the guy on the street interviews of the speeches that Martin Luther King gave. And it's just the most vile. I just think black people should just shut up and get over it. It's just like, whoa, that's some guy's parent now. Like,
Ty, if you haven't seen it yet, check out a movie called Suburbicon. It's written by Joel and Ethan Cohen. Okay. Those are really good film screenwriters, and it's directed by George Clooney.
Okay.
And it's set in Suburbicon, and it is. You think it's focused on a black family, but it's actually focused on a white family. So it's a black family that moves into a white neighborhood, and they actually got outtakes from news shows around Martin Luther King and what the white people were saying about black people moving into their neighborhoods, and that they should just shut up and change themselves and be better and blah blah blah. But the bad action is all being taken place by a white family. It's a brilliant dark comedy, and I think it's worth checking out.
I'm watching.
Larry, I was just talking about a movie that came out called Suburbicon, directed by George Clooney and written by Joel and Ethan Cohen.
Yeah, I looked it up while you were talking, and it looks pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Sheila and I watched a movie last night on Prime called Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I have some things to say about that.
Yeah. It's awesome.
We can do a show to talk about that. I also say maybe two quick things, not for air on the radio, but there was one guy on the street interview that someone gave when Martin Luther King was doing his talks. Yeah. And it was just a white guy, just completely in his own head. And he's just like, I think my problem is that the same water that makes a potato soft can also boil an egg. So when you really think about it, it's not the environment, it's the thing you put in it. So racism is really the fault of black people when you think about it. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? Oh my God. I was like, my brain is just exploding right now.
Yeah, faulty reasoning. That's what's going on.
Yeah, but it speaks to the mindset of the popular culture and how much we take for granted how much things have changed now in 40 years compared to how it was then. But it was only through the efforts of people continually reminding people, enforcing it and pushing it through, pioneers and constant pressure, that we got to where we are now. Culture takes forever to evolve.
Yeah.
But like, that's what you're doing, Dredd. Like, you're pushing ourselves and you are documenting it the whole way, because you need to remind yourselves how the ignorant people were even back then, or else you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe people talk like that. Yeah. One last dumb story before we record. I apologize. But there was a funny video of a guy recording, I forgot the guy's name, but it was like a famous black Olympian who went up to Germany and like he won like gold medals in like Hitler's in Olympics.
Jesse something.
Yeah, Jesse Owens or something like that.
Right.
And he did the man on the street things, different company. It was different ABC or something like that, like old school. And they're like, how do you think he's winning all these awards? And he's like, well, if you look at it, his skin, he's probably like his grandparents were running away from lions and zebras. And so like, that's just the same genes just put into there. I'm just like, that is so obliviously racist. And then there was some really, really bad ones. There were some bad ones just like, well, I think they're just so primitive that they just have the same skills. I'm just like, how can you say that on the news? Anyway,
people are people no matter where they are.
But it took a while for that to like go away and evolve out. But that was, you can't take for granted that people won't change for good without pressure.
Yeah, you can't stand back and wait for it to happen.
Right, exactly. It doesn't happen through petition. It happens through provocation. And you got to continue to provoke. You got to be a provocateur for change. Anyway, I'm going to hit record in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome back to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour, second half of the show. I'm Daughter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's take just a moment to talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville. ASK was founded in 2002. We're in our 21st year, and we have over 1,000 members. We have weekly in-person meetings every Tuesday evening. Look for us at Knoxville's Old City at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. We're inside at the high top tables, or if it's a really pretty day, we'll be out on the deck. We also have a Tuesday evening Zoom ASK meeting. And if you'd like to join us, email us for details at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or letschatse@gmail.com. You can find us online at meetup.com, knoxvilleatheists.org, or just Google Knoxville Atheists. It's just that simple. We'll come up. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one.
Start one. That's
right. Wombat, where you want to pick up?
So we were talking about the injustice that occurs, not just overseas and not just with hijabs, but within the, I would say the, not continental United States, but America in general, because Canada is still America, whether they like it or not. And it's happening here. It's happening here. And while they say, hey, listen, you guys have to wear this religious credit scarf or this to get certain rights, in the U.S. we're doing the exact same thing too to our own, and or in the America in general. And I feel like, Dread Pirate, while your story isn't as popular, it's just as concerning. And when I see that happening and being promoted in writing by government bodies, it's just one of those scary things where I think back to the license plate situation that's happened here in the U.S., where if you are not religious, your license plate starts with 3 letters, and if you are religious, your license plate starts with 3 numbers. And now you can just drive down the street and be like, "Oh my gosh, why do we have this as a rule?" You don't know about that?
That's not a thing. That's not a thing. That can't be a thing.
That's a real thing.
No,
that's
true.
A real thing.
Here in
That's a thing.
Here in Tennessee.
Goodness.
That's the thing in Tennessee. So if you are secular, your license plate starts with letters. If you're religious, your license plate starts with numbers. And it's this clear, you can see it from 50 yards away. And you're just like, why did we make this a thing? This is such a bizarre situation. Wow. And on top of that would be like, well, if your license plate starts with numbers and you're religious, you get to drive 5 miles faster. Like, that would be the sort of insanity that would be.
Yeah.
Why would you make
Dread,
that?
Judd's probably wondering, how do they know if you're religious? You get to choose when you buy your plate whether you want "In God We Trust" on it. And if you put yes, I want "In God We Trust," then it starts with numbers. If you choose not to, then it starts with letters, which makes it makes you wonder, why would they do that? That your car would be, you'd be able to pick out the non-religious people at a distance of 50 yards.
Yeah.
Right.
That's insane. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm going to add some more.
That's not everywhere. That's just in certain states.
It's in Tennessee.
In Tennessee.
It's at least in Tennessee.
We don't know. I don't know about any other states right now.
So I would say this. Here's some more granularity. The state official license plate starts with letters. Okay, that is the default option. However, when you sign up for a license plate, you can select a vanity plate that looks like a mock of the
at no extra cost
issued one at no extra cost, and it's advertised on the form, and so it's an option for you that's handed out. There's a lot of vanity plates that you can get, like autism, supporting hunting, cancer awareness, but you have to pay for those. What the state does is offer a free religious vanity plate, but it does not have the standardized template for format for letters and numbers. What they did is just swap them, and they look so similar that they look like state issued. And so what happens is a lot of people pick the vanity plate that's the Christian version of the state version of their plate, and then they put it up. And so you have a bunch of vanity plates that look like state plates, and then you have just standard state plates. And some of the state plates that are non-religious, those people are in fact religious. They just don't want the state to be supportive of their religion. They just want to either have a bumper sticker or, keep the state as a state. A
little fish.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas every single one that's religious, that's a religious person. So what else can you say about it?
Wow.
And
well, you can say that there might be non-religious people who haven't come out of the closet, haven't.
Oh yeah,
well, sure.
That's true.
Bout of pressure from their family, their society, the church, whatever, because they don't want to stand up for it
or their workplace.
Very true.
And face the discrimination.
Yeah. And here's the bizarre thing. So I love taking numbers. We had Boudreaux on last episode. He was a PhD in civil engineering. He loved this. I was talking about it with him. I looked at every single county, and we looked at the percentage of religious plates to non-religious plates. And of course, it's not a surprising trend. The more rural and smaller the county, the higher the percentage of religious plates. Whereas the biggest ones, the ones that are 100 times larger, are at the lowest end of that spectrum because there's just more diversity, more income. Just when you push people into
more prosperity, generally.
More prosperity, you're going to find that they aren't as religious. And that's a very telling kind of crutch.
It's harder to have in and out groups in a urban setting, right?
Right.
In a rural setting, people gravitate because they've studied the township or the county or whatever, and discovered, wow, that's mainly Catholic, or that's a Baptist county or whatever, so they can gravitate there. Whereas the city is pretty hard to do that, right?
Right. And so like the counties that have like less than 10,000 people, counties, not cities, counties that have less than 10,000 people, they're like 99% religious. Wow. But like the ones that have over 500,000 people or 700,000 people, like Davidson County, where Nashville is located, huge counties that have hundreds of times more people, 13% religious plates.
Right.
When we were doing the math, we found that a startling large number of people in Tennessee are in fact using the state-issued non-religious plates just by default. Just by pure number alone, it's staggeringly high. It's like 20% are religious people. Everything else is non-religious. And that's Tennessee. Yet Tennessee is, just through gerrymandering, very, very conservative. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a mind-blowing propagation then, because we have so many people here who are at least would be willing to understand concerns from a secular point of view and think and prosper and promote science. Yet we've staggered or stacked the deck so much against them politically that we are still in a red state. However, we are leaking. We are very much leaking out. And like all the large counties are leaking out into these smaller ones. Or whenever small counties can't support themselves and they have to commute into the larger communities to like get jobs or whatever for like their next generation, and they come back home, they suddenly become less liberal as a result of the fact that family members are seeing the light and getting outside of their own neighborhoods too. So I don't expect the trend that we're on to go backwards. If anything, we're going to just continue to go forward. And my big concern from last episode was we are pushing ourselves towards, in my opinion, the next enlightenment, where we recognize that we don't need to have this religious crutch supporting ourselves as we continue to appreciate and better understand science and be able to have better access to higher qualities of informations and explanatory systems. And I'm hoping that gives us better empathy for your situation as well too.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I've said this, I think, a number of times, is where it almost seems that the religious right are kind of doing that last gasp before they start to go under. Because the writing is clearly on the wall that religious affiliation is on the decline, and throughout, as you say, America, Canada and the United States, both, in Mexico, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe. But I was going to say, because you had mentioned about my security license, and that recently, last year already by now, I had changed my designation. I had included the private investigator designation, and that's what you have to, of course, change your card. So they give you an opportunity to upload a new photo, and of course the photo I uploaded was one depicting me in my tricorn, and it was accepted, and I was issued a card with my photo depicting me in my tricorn.
Yeah.
And it was 3 months later I got a letter, not from some staffer or some underling, but from the highest authority, the registrar of that ministry, who said, you either give it back or we're going to review your license, which of course is government speak for take it away and screw you over, essentially. So I had to submit. That particular instance now is before the BC Ombudsperson, the office there, because, again, I document everything. So
Good.
It's so very clear that I've gone through all the steps in order to argue my point that the last person to whom I could actually make a complaint was the registrar. And it was the registrar himself, through that old trickle-down effect, that was the source of the whole discrimination in the first place.
Yeah.
So the ombudsperson's office has taken on the case. They're, of course, in a backlog, so it's been a while since I've had any communication. But they are assigning an investigative team to it. Sure. With respect to the ICBC stuff, I, as you may know, and as I pointed out in my my video, that I had obtained, I made an FOI request, Freedom of Information request, and had returned to me 691 pages of mostly redacted interoffice email. And so the point, of course, I make is that, you can say that you're trying to accommodate people of religious belief who are prohibited from removing their headgear, yet the policy itself you won't share with me, and the things that go to inform the policy are sealed behind redacted documents.
Right.
So
because
of course I've applied.
It's bigots protecting other bigots, so they can continue.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
Either that or complete morons or cowards, or a combination of all three.
Exactly. And so I've successfully applied to the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner here in BC to have those documents unsevered, and the office has demanded from ICBC all those redacted and unsevered documents, all 191 pages of it. And of course, my rationale in asking for that information in the first place was to see what is informing their policy decisions and what's going on. Because if at the end of the day, they are, cheerfully and interofficely, having their own fun and just saying, this guy's a nut job and
just
let's just make some stuff up and we'll show him who's boss here.
Right. For no
Right.
good reason other than, like, think about it, 3 months passed. So, like, if it happened today, we wouldn't have this conversation until March, right?
Right.
Like, we'd just be sitting pretty, and someone says, I'm going to cause a problem for this one guy because I can,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not because I'm afraid of whatever he can do to me, but because I feel like I can. And I'm reminded of a story that we had some firemen come over, and you used to be or Dred, are you actively a fireman?
I
Are you
used to be for 11 years.
He tells us a story. We play disc golf with him all the time where you can have two fire departments. One puts out 50 fires a year, the other one puts out one fire a year. The one that puts out 50 isn't necessarily better than the other department because you can't control how many fires you're going to get in a year. So you don't use that as the criteria to determine how good of a fire department there are. Sometimes when there's no fires and the fire department doesn't do anything, they're still doing a good job. It's the people that go out of their way to cause a problem. It's like, oh, I only put out one fire this year. Let me cause 49 other fires. And so I can be the number one fire department. There are some people in the world who like take that criteria and flip it upside down and make it a problem. And for people who 3 months after the fact are still clearly didn't hurt anybody, clearly, you know, benefiting society through their licensing, and you decide, I'm going to take that away just because they're wearing a hat I don't like. That is causing a problem rather than resolving a problem. And you have to think if that is an elected official or if that's a privileged position that some guy got, that is effectively a person with a hammer who's looking around and seeing everything as a nail and just trying to figure out a way to use his hammer anytime he possibly can. It's a power trip at the end of the day.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel scared sometimes. Listen, I can tell you with the license plate situation we had here in the US or in Tennessee at least, I feel more paranoid now if I ever were to be pulled over just due to the fact that my license plate clearly would indicate that I'm not religious. And most likely a lot of the cops here are.
Depending on which county you're going through too.
Oh, yes.
Some of them are as high as like 98% religious plates.
Right.
I'd be really scared. I'd be like, oh, this is another thing I have to worry about now. Like, what a silly situation to be in, right?
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
you know, and I guess there's an app on your phone that you can set your iPhone up so that if you're pulled over, you just say, "Hey Siri, I'm being pulled over," and it all of a sudden, see, Siri just came on, but it sets your phone up so that it goes dark but records everything.
Ah, interesting.
So it's a clandestine recording app in the event that you get pulled over, so the cop doesn't know that.
What's the name of the app?
I can't remember. My son told me about it. I haven't actually checked it out. But
Well, that's likewise terrorizing because you should be able to
get,
record
for
in
sure.
public. You should be able to record in public, even if it's your own arrest. And cops who are like, "Don't record me right now." Those are the ones that are even more terrifying.
Yeah.
But even cops in the U.S., due to Black Lives Matter, now have body cams on them in the state of Tennessee, which I figure is one of the top three things that they should have had to begin with. You should always be documented as a person of power when you're interacting with citizens.
Yeah.
And to think that that wasn't a rule otherwise is outlandish. And I love the fact that you are continuing to document this, Dred. Here's my recommendation. I want to end us at least on a good note. Here's my recommendation on how to solve this problem. Just let people wear hats. Just make that the rule. Like, you can make a secondary rule saying, hey, don't have anything offensive, like offensive slurs or like body parts on it. Like, you can't come in with like a hat that's literally like boobs and be like, I worship boobs. Like, it's not a religious thing. We're not telling you not to wear it because we disrespect religion. We just feel like that's on our offensive list, which is not at all based on your religion. It's just you can't wear hats with boobs on it. That's a prudish policy, but it's not a bigotry based policy. So just say, hey, you can wear hats if you want to, just to make them offensive. If it is, put the censor bar on or whatever, and we take a picture. Just don't cover your face because we need to see your face. It's a practical rule. That's it. And then after that point, you don't have this marginalized bullying that's going on other people, and you have a rule that can better apply to everybody. What is the problem with that? Dred, what do you think? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that should be the case. It is to a certain extent in BC. Women can wear headbands. There's actually a whole sheet on what criteria you have to meet in order to wear some hair accessories. And so I actually made an attempt to have a headband above the hairline, meeting the criteria, but it just had the image of the flying spaghetti monster on it. They said, nope, we don't care. Even that rule you can't use. Our own rule, which we allow for other people, we don't for you.
What about tattoos? How'd that tattoo
well, yeah. So I did. Of course, my current license has me with a temporary tattoo of the flying spaghetti monster in prominent form on my forehead.
Yeah.
They can't do anything about it.
Can't do anything about that.
It was so. I've been thinking maybe next time I lose my license, like drop it or if I can't find it, I get one of those temporary tattoos that says "Frack ICBC."
Listen. You don't have to get down to their level. I like the path that you're on right now.
Of course.
I like the path that you're on right now, where it's just FSM. I was thinking, like, if you're ever to do another step, it would either be. And listen, I wonder about the underlying messages behind this. But you wear a yarmulke or a turban that has the FSM pattern on it, or something that's closer to one of their more approved religions, and then be like, by the way, I don't actually believe in this God. I'm just wearing a hat, which you're allowing me to.
Yeah,
that seems bizarre. Like, you didn't have a problem with it then. So if anything, if there was ever a litmus test of them being in their own butts, it's you have to be approved religions. Like, I'm not even this religion. I'm just wearing a hat. Oh, well, I'm wearing a hat. But you can't wear a hat because you're not one of the approved religions. Like, you are up in your own.
Yeah. No, and this is the thing. When I said that, they made the claim, of course, that their decision says, please note that ICBC's decision was made after looking at all the submissions, the facts, and the law. They don't say it's based on it, because clearly it's not.
They have no citations. There's no citations.
It's clearly not based on anything. They're just saying, we looked at the stuff.
It's just posturing.
We don't care.
It's just posturing. Right. And I wish lawyers would take this up more enthusiastically. I know there's not a lot of money behind it, but I wish there was like a lawyer who would like walk you through all this and
absolutely.
Like collate all this. So just continue to document and keep sound blasting. We'll continue to do it on our end too. My final thoughts would be, in the same way how crimes that you commit where the penalty is a fine are really only for poor people, because rich people don't really have to care about fines. Laws that exist in this nature, really where they only affect very marginalized groups, are just to add more authority and posturing for those who are in positions of advantage. Mm-hmm. And I think it sets us up for the worst parts of the human condition, where we like to have a pecking order. And at the end of the day, the fact that you can deny the human rights that Jared has to respectfully conduct himself as a human being who believes in a Pastafarian God, compared to a guy who believes in a snake that gives dietary advice to nudists, or something like that, or a 6-armed blue god with an elephant or something like that. Like, the fact that you can do that is really upsetting, but also speaks to the idea that it doesn't make your God any more real. Right. And if anything, it only demonstrates that he's more of a tyrant, and you are embodying that tyranny through him or her or it, and making it even less likely that atheists would be more inclined to take you seriously. It just puts you further into the basket of terrible ideologies and bad examples of dogma in action. Yeah. So,
or as they say, batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy. And I think what we'll have is the demonstration that this will be hopefully the dying throes of religion before we're all done at the end of the day. Yeah. Dread, anything you'd like to plug before we're done?
Yeah, of course. I have my YouTube channel, Mind Pirate, MINDPYRAT on YouTube. And you just click in at Mind Pirate and you'll come to my channel. I record this Sunday mornings when I'm on at 7 a.m. PST, and Global Atheist News at 11 a.m. on Sundays as well.
Pretty cool. I'm Let's Chat. You know what? In the comment description, I'll put a link to the song that I just made. I feel good about it. And also, look up some Pastafarians and subscribe to some Pastafarians on YouTube. There's great community, and 2, way more than you would anticipate. So find them and
around
realize
the world.
that They're all around the world, and the more attention we can give to them, the better, because the news may not do you a favor in that regard. Larry, anything you would recommend?
Well, my content can be found at digitalfreethought.com. Excuse me. And be sure to click the blog button for our radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject of atheism. My YouTube channel handle is at Doubter5. And you can find my book on atheism called Atheism, What's It All About on Amazon. So it's there. Thank you, Dred, for showing it. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life. And we'll see you next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on WOZO Radio. Say bye, everybody.